Welcome to the Thrive With Us podcast. I am Nick Jones.
I'm Nicole Jones.
We still haven't changed our music because I am lazy and can't
That'll be
get around
next
to it.
season.
And we are sponsored by our most gracious sponsor, Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken. That joke
In the
gets
land
old.
of make-believe.
Yeah. Anywho, today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and how it can affect you in your life.
And how you can overcome it.
Yep.
Or keep it tame.
Keep it tame. Exactly.
Because I don't think it ever truly goes away.
Does anything really go away?
No.
Anything we talk about, let's just throw that out in the air. Because I think it's important. Nobody's ever over anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant work.
We're
You see these
always a
gurus
work
on
in
the internet
progress.
telling you, you could be a millionaire if you just, work out every morning, blah, 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 blah. Like, they got stuff behind them that isn't working out, too. So
Yeah, and it's just like building muscles. You can build muscles. You can be the most muscular person in the world, but if you stop, your muscle will go away.
Ooh, I like that.
So it's something that and that's why, like, I think all of our brains, on that note, think like, once I get down to this weight or once I have this much muscle, happily ever after. No,
If I can
because
have
you will
that
still
truck,
continue to have to put in the work every
I'll
single
look
day.
good. If I can do that, I'll look good. And that's why imposter syndrome is so important. For me, it's something I've suffered with always and forever. It's the biggest thing that I suffer with. I say that about everything. I'm just a mess. In case everyone wants to know. Anywho. So imposter syndrome. I think in order to talk about something, we should define it. What is imposter syndrome to you?
Imposter syndrome is this little parasite that lives in my brain that hits me in the face every single morning when I wake up, when my cortisol levels are spiked. To me, it's that little negative voice in your head that really, no matter what you go through in life, that voice, that little negative bitch voice in the back of your head tells you that you're not good enough, you're a fraud, you're fake, you don't try hard enough. No matter what you do, nothing will ever be good enough.
Yep. To me, it's, basically you're seeing some external success, right? Like, wow, in the thing we call this world, I call it the simulation, but that'll be it for another episode. This whole thing we've been taught that is our life, right? It's the external success there, but then internally, you don't think you're good enough. I think it's self-doubt could be the other word. Self-confidence is a little different to me, but I think it's just overall self-doubt. You have
Self-esteem
everything
issues.
outside of you is telling you that you're pretty, quote unquote successful, whatever that means to you. But internally, you are a fraud. You're not good enough. You don't do the right things. You are your biggest critic.
No one likes you.
No one likes
Everyone
you.
thinks that you're just full of shit.
When you talk, they're just like, oh my God, what is this guy even say or gal saying? Oh my God, they don't know anything.
What a freaking loser.
Okay, I think we're showing our trauma. Go on for an hour. I'll just flow out what my brain's always telling me.
And then, like, when you do, like, for me, when I do something and it's like really hard, like I'll public speak or something that's whatever, and then people are like, wow, good job, you did good. I'm like, they're just giving me pity.
That's all fake. They just did that because I asked for it. Oh my God.
They just feel bad for me because of how terrible I was.
We're toxic.
Yeah.
It's bad.
But I think that we all struggle with it, and that's the secret here. You writing notes down?
I am. I wrote something. As much as we just talk shit about imposter syndrome, I think it's helpful. I think that imposter syndrome helped me get to where I'm at today because I'm never good enough. But there is a point.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like the ego, right? You talk about the ego, like diminished ego is the enemy, and I talked about that in what we were doing the other day, the little thing with auto shop owners. But the ego is super helpful too. I mean, if I didn't have an ego, I wouldn't want to do a lot of things. Right?
Yeah. And
it's just keeping it in check.
Yes. So Eckhart Tolle, he's like a spiritual teacher. He's not like, he doesn't teach on just like one religion. He studies all of them, and he's pretty much not even human because of how just detached from his human emotions. Like he's able to keep all of them at bay. But he has
human.
But he has completely changed my life. His books. So he has this book called A New Earth, and I've been talking about it actually a lot this past week, which is weird. But he talks about the ego, and he talks about how it's necessary for us to all have an ego. Like you said, it did empower us to, I don't even think the right word is empower, but it did get us to do all the things that we did because we were always like our anxiety, our imposter syndrome, which is all tied into our wounded ego, told us we weren't good enough. So we kept trying to go after more and more and more, and that only gets you so far though, right? Until you break and you crumble. But he talks about you can't completely get rid of your human ego. Like it will always be there and you need it, but you just have to be aware of it and you have to keep it checked.
And yeah, I think the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. I have to think about that quote a lot. It's real forthcoming in my head because that's what gets you imposter syndrome too, right? You're comparing to somebody who's 25 and is way ahead of where you are, or somebody who's 40 that, like there's all these comparisons. And how the hell, the thing about comparison that's so interesting is how can you compare someone else to yourself when your life experiences are so differing? Like we'll compare ourselves to like some fitness guru, and who knows how they grew up, right? Like I didn't grow up being able to work out or anyone telling me that. I've had to teach myself that. Someone else that gets taught that early, that and now we're looking at each other going, whoa, why are they so ahead of me? And at the same point, everyone experiences life so different. So I'm comparing people's, there's just no way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
hot.
It is hot in here. Yeah, I know. This
like
room's
an oven in
always
here.
hot. God. Shout out to the landlord that doesn't turn the AC on.
You're going to have to cut that out.
No, I'm not. I don't cut anything out.
We're going to get kicked out.
Yeah,
anyway, I have
right.
PTSD. Yeah.
That's that imposter syndrome. But,
Yeah.
Well, to finish my thought, I was going to say, comparison is so annoying because you can't, there's actually zero comparison you can make with other people, because even if it's you, like, a lot of people that have traumatic childhoods will compare themselves to their brother or sister and say, well, we grew up the same. No, you didn't. Like, you got a different version of your parent, right? And you got a different version of...
Even if you were twins.
Absolutely, because your parents don't treat both of you the same, and you don't experience life the same. That's
Everyone
the beauty in
reacts
life.
and absorbs differently.
If we all experienced life the same, sure, that would be a great comparison, but otherwise it's complete garbage. It's useless thoughts that are only made to break you, that were built into you when you were a small child, and you'll have to fight the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
I
jungle.
love what you said about comparison, right? I think that, I don't know if it's a human conditioning or if it's instinctual or what, but a little bit of both, I'm sure. I like to always say, I heard this a few years ago and it really stuck with me. If there's someone, obviously it's super important to always have people that you look up to and that inspire you. It's easy to get lost in, I want what they have. And then you start going down this rabbit hole of jealousy and being envious. And I think it's super important to not use those people as comparison and envy, but to use them as inspiration to get where you want to go.
Yeah, and you can get, I've been down that hole before. And anytime you find yourself like hating somebody for their success or something that they have that maybe you like, just know that that's you. That's a mirror, right?
It's always you. Even if you feel, like any sort of negative feeling towards another human It's always something within you, because even if someone was doing something wrong or whatever, you didn't agree with them, why should it affect you emotionally so intensely, like how it does sometimes, you know? It's always something that you're battling.
Always. And I challenge anyone listening to next time you get a little upset with someone, like for me, it happens with family a lot, or just people that you're close to. Like, notice when you get upset at something they do, and then, really self-reflect and see if it's, really, really look at yourself and see if that's something that maybe you do as well, or you think, right? Like, it may not be something that you do in the external world, but it may be something you do in your brain. That's a revelation I had earlier, because, certain things I will dislike about people, I'm like, I don't really do that. But then I think about it and I do that to myself, which is a whole different ball game. And to get back on imposter syndrome, I hear this. Actually, I hear it from Nicole. She'll be like, I'll do something, or we'll be doing something, and then I'll share my insecurity about it. She's like, oh my God, really? Oh, wow. I never thought you would feel like that before. Blah, blah, blah. I can't even understand that. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah.
What are you talking about?
like what? That's rude.
What? You're like making me sound like an asshole.
No, you'll feel. Okay,
Like,
let me
damn.
elaborate. Well, it's true. Like, okay, I'll go. And I don't want to use an example because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But it's like I'll do something that maybe it looks like I'm very good at. Okay, let's say I fix a car, and I'm like, oh well, I screwed this up or that up, and you're like, oh, I thought you were like, you don't. I should back up. You don't put me down like that, but you're so surprised that I feel insecure about that, right?
Yes, I think that. Yes.
You had to think about that.
No.
And that's
Because
interesting to me.
Because
you always say
obviously,
that. I didn't know you were nervous. You said that to me the other day. I was
that is bull. So
I didn't know you were
don't
nervous
realize that,
because I just bottle it up, right?
You don't realize that I know that you're nervous, but I know that if I confront you about it, it makes you even more nervous. So I literally will like stay back.
Cool.
Yeah. And I won't acknowledge it because I know that it just makes it worse. It'll just put more pressure on you, and then you'll like face it more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I do know what you're.
Yes.
I do. So, all right. Let's end it. Just kidding. No, I know what you're saying. I actually used to really, back when I was like heavily victim mindset, I used to always, and I think we all get caught up in our own emotions where we think that everyone around us isn't battling the same things that we're battling, and we are suffering the most. So
that's a good one.
So that's
what imposter syndrome does.
I did always use. I used to always. I always used to think that I was the only one that was insecure and suffering. And then also a lot of it was because you didn't share it. You definitely weren't open about it with me.
I am not open about anything because as a small male child, everyone tells you that you're not supposed to have emotions. Don't cry, stupid.
Yeah,
Don't.
for
Hey,
sure.
why are you crying? Why are you crying? Is that not what happens?
People did that to me too. Oh my God. I would
For
get,
sure.
I used to always get made
think
fun
that
of by my
happens
family
to-
for crying.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, it's 9 o'clock. She's crying again.
Isn't that such a travesty? Like, my parents too. Like, I mean, you see it with little kids. Like, they're crying. Stop having. It's like, let the kid have some emotion. Like, I don't have kids, but if I did, I would, let the kid have some emotions and then walk him through it. And now I'm sure that sounds easy on this podcast, but in real life, it's
God,
probably-
I know. Even when our dogs are like having an
No
emotional
judgment.
outburst, we're like,
No
shut
judgment.
up.
But
Stop barking.
I'm not dumb enough to think that I would do that every time. Come on now. But I just think that it's something that's ingrained in our heads. And so you want to look tough, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to have these insecurities in front of everyone. And I also think that's what holds a lot of people back, right? That's your ego. That's your inability to share and be vulnerable about the problems that you have. You will never get over them. I spent a long time in our shop just suffering. Oh my God, like hardcore. I know you did too. Just sitting there, like, and then not knowing what to do, but not telling anybody. Everyone from the outside, like, I had a new truck at the time, and oh wow, good job. Oh wow. I remember one time, side story, because This is a fun one. Me and my brother went to deliver this Ford Ranger to a guy who worked at a cemetery, which was a little weird, but we went to deliver the truck, and he had been a previous customer of Anderson Automotive, delivered the truck, little did he know I was delivering the truck because, like, I needed the money right then and there. But we delivered it, and he's kind of asking me questions, and then he goes, "Oh, wow, I'd sure like to have your parents," because I was 22 and owned the shop, and it was like,
trust fund, baby.
My dad works at the shop
have
too.
no idea what I've gone through.
No. And I, not to say that you shouldn't wish to have my parents, but like just the way he said that, we all just want to view.
He was just trying to, basically take away all of your hard work from you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh no, I didn't spend fucking countless nights figuring out how to fix cars, so I would be
back to the mirror though. That was his mirror.
Exactly.
He was insecure about
100%.
Yeah, himself, and so then he projected it onto you.
Yeah, and I think I have been the deepest perpetrator of that. Like,
mirror
I
gazer.
would look at I would look at others and think like, oh well, they just blah 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 blah. As soon as you start doing that, you're weak. That's a weak human right there. If you want to think that other people's success just came easier to them because blank, you got to get that out of your mind. That's back to the victim mindset. But.
So I have this controversial thing that I want to bring up. I heard Alex Hermosi, if anyone, don't look for the button. Yeah.
You knew what was coming.
I heard Alex Hermosi say, stop it, the other day on one of his reels is like, the reason why you feel imposter syndrome is because you are an imposter. And he was referring to a lot of people nowadays are out there on social media trying to be life coaches, trying to give guidance and advice when they haven't experienced anything of their own. They have really.
They're like, I'm going to coach your business to $5 million. Oh, what have you done? Well, I made a coaching business. Like, guess what, buddy? I don't want your information. That's like a lot of shop coaches, right?
Yeah, and I see it. You see it all the time on social media.
Everyone's a guru.
Follow me, and
you can read a book on nutrition and become a nutrition guru. If everyone like, how crazy is it that we'll just watch a reel and trust any sort of their advice without any background, right?
Yeah.
So you can just read a couple books on nutrition and start making reels that are a little controversial that make like somewhat sense and become, I think it's called a charlatan, right? Like where someone starts to sell shit based on no facts.
Yeah. And so with that said, I feel like, sometimes the imposter syndrome feeling can be a little real, like a little realistic, I think 9 times out of 10 though, it's a very fraudulent voice that's, it's almost like when there's an upset customer and they sound batshit crazy. They're just going off the wall.
They came in right up front and you were like, oh no, they're crazy. And then they do the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And then they're pissed and you're like, oh my God, they're overreacting. And even if they were crazy, even if they were on drugs and whatever, there's always an underlying truth behind that customer complaint.
Sometimes
I will
they
always
just find
learn,
your smallest weakness.
Yeah. I will always learn something from every single customer complaint. Something that we could have done better,
Always.
And that's what I've done with myself. And like you said, it's a strength and a weakness because it can completely destroy you if that's all you're focusing on. Like you're never good enough. But it's also gotten me really far. Boom.
Boom.
Thought closed.
I'm just having fun with buttons now. I think you hit on something that's really important there. That is something that imposter syndrome is very positive for me at least, and exactly what you just said. You see so many people who aren't self-reflective or can't look at themselves, like they've been taught to like try to be tough or try to have that white picket fence or try to, and that's just so self-destructive and eliminates you from growing. And I think that because I was writing, or I was making a PowerPoint for a thing I was going to do recently, and I was trying to identify that. I was doing something on ego, and I just thought like that's something I've never really struggled with, to be honest. Like I've always been very open to advice, suggestion, very like, hey, somebody knows better
always
than me.
the student, yeah.
But that student sometimes there's a reason for that, and I think a lot of it ties into imposter syndrome. It's because I didn't have any self-confidence. I was a very low self-confident person, so I was a master technician at 18 years old, and I would just constantly be a student, and it helped me a lot. But then there's places where I would be the student when I shouldn't have been the student, and I would just stay quiet and kind of let that happen. And that was the imposter syndrome in me, right? Like, oh, I'm not good enough. But meanwhile, some dude's teaching me something. I'm like, oh God, this is bad, But I don't say anything. I'm not saying you should always speak up in those moments.
And not only teaching you, but if they're spreading that to other people wherever you're at in the room,
for a long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to. I would always be the kid in class that knew the answer but never raised his hand. I would be the kid in class and that's just insecurity and yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, like I said, every morning I wake up with an intense amount of anxiety. And honestly, I think that for me, like overcoming and learning to live with imposter syndrome and use it as a tool and use it as fuel for your fire. The first step for me is to have awareness on it. You sweating?
I think so.
Have awareness on it. Have awareness that voice, and
that's the first step in every.
Yeah. And I wrote this down. We always refer to this as the 8th grader. We always feel like we're 8th graders. We're still 8th graders.
We do that.
We're running a business, we have a team. We're just these little 8th graders. That is like that imposter syndrome version of us, is that little, we still envision ourselves like these little kids that don't know what they're doing.
For sure. Yeah. Even like a month ago, or maybe, I don't even know how long time is confusing to me sometimes, but it wasn't that long ago. And that's what I shared. I was like, I feel like I'm just an 8th grader still, like running a multi-million-dollar business. And then you're like, me too.
Yeah, I know. I think that was so recent.
And then I skipped into the kitchen and drank my protein shake out of my SpongeBob protein.
Popped open my Capri Sun.
Hell yeah.
And you know what? There's a beautiful piece to that, always being a kid, right? I love SpongeBob. No shame in that, but...
Shout out to the Krusty Krab.
Yeah, Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza for you
Krusty
and me.
Krab pizza is the pizza. Absolutely.
And even in our business, all the crazy childish things we do with shooting each other with guns.
Isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
To always be a child?
Yeah. For
I know we got off of imposter syndrome.
No, but it all it kind of ties together.
It does.
Not really, but.
Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is number one for me is to have awareness on it. And every time you hear that voice come in and try to tell you all these things, acknowledge it and go, okay, I know this voice is a little parasite in my head. I'm going to find the little truth that lies underneath it. I'm going to have grace for myself. I'm going to still love myself. I'm not going to let that voice destroy me. And I'm going to take that little lesson that's deep under there and then figure out how I can grow from it, but then also not completely let that voice shit on me and make me depressed. And it sounds so much easier. It sounds so easy. It's not. It's freaking hard. It takes repetitions. It's just like anything else. It's like building muscles. It's something you have to practice at over and over and over again. Just like we always talk about gratitude as a habit. It's something you have to intentionally do.
Yeah.
Every time that voice pops in your head, you can't give into it and say, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah. I struggle with that bad.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to say to fix it because I'm still trying.
It's almost like
I have a real hard time with. Honestly, it's probably the hardest, and I guess I would loop imposter syndrome into with depression, right? Because I feel like that is where you get down that whole. I mean, the interesting statement of you talking to yourself is always one that I think about a lot. Because doesn't that mean there's two selves? And
yes.
Ever since I heard that, I've just really thought on that. And everything, thoughts are just an illusion, really. I don't want to get too deep, but really, I mean, what is a thought? Everything that you think is real is not as real as you think because there's some inner power talking, right? and you're talking to yourself, my inner dialogue is very, very negative, and I have a hard time. I don't have any good step. The only way I know how to get rid of it is to do.
That's what David Goggins does.
Yeah. And the problem is when you stop, the hill, you start going down the hill, and it's really hard to climb back up it.
I really would have. So when I went to that event a couple weeks ago, David Goggins was there, and he was doing a Q&A, but of course everyone was running to the front, and I was like, I'm not going to fight the crowd. But one of the question that I would have loved to ask him, the question that I would have loved to ask him was, because he's gone through periods of time where he's like had broken legs, and I think he still ran on broken legs, but when he couldn't run, when he couldn't exercise, because that's his tool, right? Is he wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. He goes and runs 10 miles. That's what keeps him confident, moving forward, and what happens when you're injured, you're sick, whatever, and you can't get up at 5 a.m. and run 10 miles?
You feel like shit.
How do you, yeah.
It's a good question.
And he kind of did touch on it. He said that even when I'm going to get to a point where maybe I don't run anymore, but I'm going to find something else. I'm going to find something else to dedicate myself to and show up for myself every day. And I think that you
doing
can.
Hard shit. I mean, it's like our last podcast is like, you got to do hard shit. When you don't, you get depressed. And it's so easy to sit here on a fucking podcast to say that, even to me, right? Like, you're in that mood. You just don't want to do something. It sucks. Everything piles on top of you. Feels like the world's just everything that could possibly go wrong has. And in your mind, nothing sounds positive or nothing sounds satisfactory.
Everything's just dark.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Well, I could go run, but that's just going to hurt. Oh, I could go draw, but my pencil broke. Like, and your brain does that, right? Like that internal monologue. And maybe that's the same one that does the imposter syndrome. Man, I wish if someone has any clues on how to get rid of that, I'd love to hear it.
So, and that's the thing. And that's what we talked about is like, you'll never be able to truly get rid of it. It'll always be there. It's a daily practice that you have to dedicate yourself to in order to keep it at bay, but like first, and I'm just speaking from experience. Everyone's different. Let me just start with that. This is my life experience that I'm sharing. The small truth underneath the imposter syndrome that I'm referring to, for example, is I set an intention that I want to exercise, move my body, right? Every day or however often I set the intention. And when I don't do it, and I come up with all these excuses. I really don't have a good excuse. I gave into my, my weaker self.
Your bitch voice.
My bitch voice, yeah.
Are you afraid to
I
swear?
gave in. No, I was I'm just trying to keep it simple. But I gave into that voice that wants to keep me comfortable. That wants to keep me really comfortable, and it lies to me and says, "Oh, you don't have to. You can do it tomorrow. You'll be fine."
I'll just do double tomorrow.
And then and then you know why imposter syndrome comes in? Because you lied to yourself. You lied to yourself, and that's the truth underneath the imposter syndrome is that you lied to yourself because you told yourself that you were going to do it and you didn't.
How do you stop it?
So you have to have grace. Like if you're in a dark space and you can't physically actually, like I've been through periods of time where I literally can't get out of bed. I'm bedridden. I can't even get up to go to the bathroom. Like it's dark, it's heavy. Of course, I'm not going to be able to go and run 10 miles, You have to have grace for yourself and release that pressure of setting yourself up for a lie. Like don't tell yourself when you're in those moments that you're going to go and run 10 miles when you know damn well you're not going to.
It just doesn't resonate. I've heard you say that to me many a time.
But have a plan to get out of it. You have to set a plan, otherwise you'll never get out. And I know you're looking at me like that because it sounds so easy.
Well, I hate the idea of like, have great. Like we talk about victim mentality and all this shit. And then it's like, for me, I don't want to have fucking grace.
Victim mentality is different because
I don't care if I'm in a deep, dark depression. I should be able to get up and fucking push through it.
But victim mentality is different than grace because victim mentality is, I can't lose weight. Nothing I do is working. My body just hates me and I'm set up for
I have
failure.
hormone problems.
Instead I have
that.
grace for myself because I'm feeling really mentally unwell. I can't commit to exercising today, but I know that if I don't exercise today, I'm not gonna progress like with my physical goal. Or for me, running helps my mental state, and I know that, and I deeply know that. So I know that when I don't run and I don't exercise, I'm actually not progressing my mental state either. But still, sometimes you need a break, you know?
Yeah, man. My brain just I appreciate everything you're saying, and I don't know why. I'm just like, nope. Because it just gives you, to me, that's just a gateway into, oh, I can just walk today. Oh, I can just eat this burger. Oh, I need grace. All of a sudden, I'm such an extremist, right? Like, either I'm going to get out there and do 10 miles, or I'm going to get out there and fucking eat 5 bags of Skittles and a sleeve of Oreos. No joke. Like, and so when I even think about giving myself that grace, it sounds like a trip to hell for me. So I'm just like, But then if I don't, then
you
hold
lied to
myself
yourself, and now you hate yourself even more.
Yeah, it's a dark circle.
Yeah.
It's
And
hard
like
to be
for me, and I know for you too, like we've studied ourselves so deeply.
Did this turn into a therapy session for me? I'm sorry.
We've studied ourselves. We know how we respond. I know exactly how my body responds when I go and binge eat 2 orders of tempura, a huge order of noodles. I've used to do this every single day. When DoorDash came about.
Shout out to Jade Garden.
No, what? No. Yeah, no. I had my places in town that I was addicted to. Coco's, yeah, sushi, all the sushi restaurants, Fusion. Anyway, 2 orders.
Shout out
no
to
one's
China.
looking. No one's looking. 2 orders of vegetable tempura to myself, not sharing with you. And then like a whole order of like several rolls of sushi, or a big order of like Mongolian noodles, whatever. No one's looking.
Tell me you're Asian without telling me you're Asian.
I'm Asian because I like Asian food.
You're just naming off a whole bowl of noodle.
Why do I sound like a country folk?
You
a whole bowl of noodle.
You were an Asian country. I meant to go noodle.
You're terrible.
Shit. Sorry.
And you know what's funny? Just like side story. I'm sorry. ADHD really quick. One time I was really insecure because I was ordering a lot of food for just my one little self, and it was very secret. What?
Seriously?
Seriously, what?
You got so serious.
Okay, this is serious. Are you ready?
I'm scared.
So DoorDash, okay? I ordered the DoorDash to the door. I never opened the door. I always had them drop it off because I didn't want them to. I didn't want them to see me.
Was it some noodle?
So, all right, we're gonna get canceled, dude. Knock it off.
Or is it the country noodle?
So, so one time I ordered a crap ton of food, just so much food. I don't even know. And the DoorDash guy texted me with the photo of my order on the doorstep, and he wrote a message with it. He sent it to me, and he wrote, "Bye, pig." And I was like, this motherfucker just called me a pig.
Bye, piggy.
I was like
he knew you were just one
shit.
human ordering that?
Yeah.
He looked through the window. Oh, this lady is huge.
I was like, what the fuck? He just called me a pig. I group chatted it with my family. Like, this guy just called me a pig. You know, I was just like so infuriated. And then my sister's like, I don't get it. And I was like, he called me a pig. And she's like, no, he meant like it's by the pig. Because I had this little pig sculpture on my front doorstep.
I remember that.
And I was like, oh shit. That was my insecurity.
See you later, piggy. Hey, spelling's important sometimes, you know? He put that E there.
No, he didn't.
Oh.
But it was in my head. My head saw the
never
E.
mind.
Yeah, it was
would
just
have been more funny.
fully, I was just so insecure about it. Anyway, I have no idea why that got brought up and what we were talking about.
We were talking about your copious amounts of DoorDash ordering.
Yes.
And
because
you
why?
are a pig. According to DoorDash. I don't remember either. I'm sorry.
God.
We're both not good. This is turning out to be a real shit show.
Anyway, I think we're talking
apologize
about
for
imposter syndrome and like the truth underneath it because so I was going to say, I know myself really well. I know how my body responds to greasy fried food, how not only my physical body responds, but how my mental responds as well. I know it does really bad things to my mental state for more than, I think, mentally, and like there's scientific facts of the fact that your gut is so connected to your brain. Yeah, whatever. It's true because I've felt it. And so I know when I'm like, I have grace I honestly don't have food grace for myself anymore because I ain't slipping backwards.
See, that's how I feel about exercise grace, but it's okay.
I am not slipping backwards because I was so addicted to those foods that it had such a strong hold over me, and I don't ever want to go back there again.
And that's what gives you the imposter syndrome, right? Because imposter syndrome is such I think every entrepreneur goes through it, everyone that I've talked to. And if you haven't, I think you're probably just real cocky and don't realize that you got more to give. But if you aren't feeling that, I don't think you would get where you should, right? You have to have those feelings, but it's keeping them at bay.
Yes, I think that's basically it. Yeah, like in summary.
It's like everything else, it's a balance.
Acknowledging it, embracing it, and one other thing I wanted to mention, actually, you just said some people are so cocky and they don't realize it. I was going to say some people try to protect their egos from experiencing that imposter syndrome. So they try to always be the big fish in the small pond. They're wherever they're at. They are the most knowledgeable. They're always the teachers. And nothing can touch them.
You've called me out for this before. See, for me, I would do that because I felt like I was the same. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That sounds so pretentious, but like I would put myself in a small pond because I felt like I was supposed to be in a small pond. You know, I feel insecure with these people. And I think that's such a thought I just had is like, that's why imposter syndrome can be so damaging is because you think you're this smaller person. You're never going to grow unless you hang out with those bigger people that make you uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
Like they always say, I mean, everyone's heard the saying, you know, you hang out with 5 millionaires, you're the 6th millionaire. You hang out with 5 drug addicts, you're the 6th drug addict. And there's the parable of the talents, which is like a biblical story that I actually really love. I'm not much of a biblical person, but
you're not a biblical guy.
Biblical. Nothing against it, but it's such a great story because it's so true. Like you need to hang out with people who are always pushing you to be better, and you watch them. And that's when I started growing. I started going to conferences with people having bigger things than me, and it made me dream. It made me see that it's possible. I'm a very I can read stuff or listen to things, but I need to see it. I got to see those people. I got to talk to them, know they're real, you know? Like, wow, this guy can do this. Okay, well, so can I, right? Like, and hanging out with those people. The power of that is so, so big, and it gets harder and harder as you grow to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on something of being the big fish in the small pond. You need to jump ship. You got to get on a bigger pond or be on a bigger boat, whatever you want to say. Whatever metaphor you want to make. And growing out of your imposter syndrome is a really important piece to that. It's not only because, you know, you used it in a way that it's like, oh, you're cocky, so you always want to be the teacher, but sometimes it's you aren't cocky and you're so unself-confident that you bring yourself to those ponds and you need to get to the next one, right? The lake, the ocean.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, I love that. And I think as far as that goes, and for you, like, I don't think that you have a hard time. Like, you don't want to be a big fish. You're always a student. But I think that where you, and for me too, we both struggle with building relationships, not just being the student, but actually building relationships with people that are the bigger, intimidating fish. Or just people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's also a whole other little, side thing that's happening. But I think that for me, I actually struggle with always wanting to be the student, and I have a hard time being the teacher, imposter syndrome. And when I went to that event a couple weeks ago, they had us set intentions when we first got there. And it was like, what do you want to gain from this? what do you want and what do you want to give? And I was like, oh dang, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about what I wanted to give, because sometimes I feel like I don't have anything to give. I'm not worthy of giving anything, you know?
Well, and I think we both.
So I had to really like actually think about like, okay, what am I going to give while I'm here at this event, you know?
And isn't that so selfish of you to
Yeah,
not wanna
it's almost
give?
like narcissistic.
It is.
Isn't it?
No, I think about that myself all the time.
Because I'm
It's
like, damn, I walked into this building not at all thinking about what I was going to give.
Yeah, and maybe that just happens, right? But I'm with you on that. That's what I struggle with the most, right? It's like being the teacher. And as I've grown, it's definitely not nearly as bad as it once was, but like I said, I used to be an expert, what I would consider a very good technician. I would take advice from people who I shouldn't have been, and I could have grown a lot more if I did that.
Yeah, and I think we're probably, I don't know how long we've been.
45. So
I wanted to say one more thing about how to, I guess, keep imposter syndrome at bay. Something that's really helped me is, and I know this sounds frou-frou and weird and corny and awkward, and this isn't stuff that I've made up. It's stuff that I was taught, and then also I've experienced myself personally. But, you know, I think that we're all taught that looking at yourself in the mirror is so vain, and it's kind of like frowned upon. Like, oh, look at him checking himself out in the mirror.
Depends on the person, but
yeah,
me and you definitely.
Yeah. So like I've kind of always had this insecurity of like looking at myself in the mirror, like, oh, don't let anyone see me checking myself out or looking to see how I look, blah, 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 blah. Well, one thing, so I started going to a yoga class a couple years ago, and I noticed that when I started going to yoga, I started developing this like weird internal sense of confidence that I've never experienced before. And I was putting two and two together, that it was from me just witnessing myself in the mirror in that yoga class, my body, the way it moves, the way it looks. You know, I was no longer seeing only that 8th grader. I was seeing my adult self in this woman grown up body, you know, and facing it. And I think that some of us are scared to look at the mirror because we don't love ourselves. And so I almost think that mirror work and facing yourself in the mirror, looking at yourself in the mirror, just literally just looking at yourself in the mirror and facing what you look like and who you are. What is behind your eyes? What's making your whole body move? What is that energy, that source behind your eyeballs? Who's in there? There's someone in there.
I feel like there's got to be more than just looking in the mirror. I do that. I look in the mirror. Hey, look.
So there is a lot more to it. There is a lot more to it. And then I ended up doing this, like, it was like a personal confidence, like self-love course.
Well, why aren't you telling us what it is?
Because I was getting there. Don't rush me. Jeez.
You just said mirror work.
Mirror work. So
what the fucking mirror work is this? Everybody wants to know what the fuck is mirror work.
Okay. Are you ready for it? So anyway, I did,
scared.
this was last year I did this. It was like I don't even remember, 3-month course or something like that, where it wasn't even like a therapy thing, but it was very similar. Basically just positive affirmations, looking at yourself in the mirror, looking at the way your body moves, standing in certain ways, like in like confidence, like, and I think Tony Robbins actually talks a lot about this, having like power poses, like the way you stand, or like body movements to like make you feel really powerful and confident. And like
Stand
having
with your shoulders back and your chest out.
Yeah.
Jordan
And then
Peterson talks
also
all
the
about
course that I did actually had us stand in like our really low self. Like, how do you look when you're like really depressed and sad? And then kind of like switching out of it and like switching into your higher self, and just basically just observing yourself in all sorts of different forms. I'm not a teacher in this, so I'm not going to be able to help you through that really, but you can research it.
I think, and I had to look the book up, but Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules to Life. I think the first rule is like literally stand with your shoulders back and your chest out.
Yes.
And it's so true. Like,
you're no longer the 8th grader.
It's just like when you get in the, like, there's so many little things, you know. I just watched a reel of Aaron Stokes talking about that. It's like so many little things you can do about what the music you listen to, and everything goes
music
into
is
that.
freaking huge. Yeah, and positive affirmations.
music.
You do. Positive affirmations. Like, it sounds so corny, like looking at yourself in the mirror and going, I am confident, I am loved, I am powerful, I am making a difference. It's corny, it's awkward, but the more you do it, the less awkward it gets. And that was with me in yoga. When I first started going to yoga, and it was like, close your eyes and inhale audible exhale. And I was so insecure about making.
Is everyone else?
I was like, I would like fake the audible exhale so no one would know that I
it's like
wasn't
when you're
actually
singing Happy Birthday and you're the guy.
Yeah, just lipping it. Yeah. Because, but that's because you don't like accept or love yourself, so you don't want to hear your own voice, right? But freaking hear yourself, like let that out.
I know.
Express your voice, and that was another exercise I did.
Why is it okay for everyone?
And your
else?
arms when you talk, like move, like don't try to stay small,
I'm an arm talker.
Take
so
up as much space as you can.
Just sitting here talking with my arms in front of me is very difficult. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
You definitely touched on a lot of stuff, and another one of my favorite quotes that I keep saying over and over because I love it, and it's things aren't taught, they're caught. And if you have kids, you owe it to them to do that, because if you're that small person that, oh my God, I can't be seen. Oh no, it's fine. Don't do this for me. Oh Lord, then guess what? Your kid's gonna battle with his whole or her whole life. Yeah, that's
even little things.
Oh,
the way you look at yourself in the mirror and you look disappointed, or you're afraid to look at yourself,
or you keep calling yourself fat or ugly.
Yeah, they'll see it. Even if you don't even say anything,
they'll you can
see
tell your
it.
kid they should feel great, but how you treat yourself is how they're going to treat themselves.
Yeah, we all are as human beings. We feel so much more than we even realize, and our kids feel that. And
I think. Yeah, that's such a huge thing. I could go into that for another hour, but
also music. Really quick, I wanted to touch on music. I have this like empowering playlist I've been building over the last probably year and a half.
Katy Perry CD.
There's a Katy Perry. There's a couple of Katy Perry songs on there. I'm not gonna lie.
I know that.
There's Hozier, Katy Perry, Labyrinth. There's just a lot of anyway. Everyone's different. You might have Blink-182 on yours.
Why do you always think I don't like Blink-182 that much?
Academy is.
What do you? These are not the one. Like, I thought you knew me better than this. It's Incubus.
Incubus, yeah. I listen to it when I run, and then when I run, I experience that runner's high, which puts me in my peak state, like the best feeling ever. And then when I'm down or I'm scared, I was doing this news interview like a year or so ago. I was so terrified. Oh my God, I felt like a freaking 8th grader. I'm like, why am I going on the news? I was in the Tesla, which has an amazing sound system. I was blasting that playlist. I was blasting that playlist in the car right before I got out to go instantly into that news interview thing. And it really helped me just embrace my higher self,
See, I'm always sitting like this.
Me too.
If you can't
I have
see,
a long torso. Look at this.
I'll have my shoulders almost up
So
to my
awkward.
ears, It's like,
Yeah.
God. And it just happens, but
yeah, that's all I had. I think we should definitely end on the book recommendations. I love that.
okay, go ahead.
So I have, for my books,
Don't say it.
what?
I think you're going to steal mine.
Four Agreements.
Oh, no, that's not it. But
By Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yep.
You Are a Badass by Jen
Sincero.
Thank you. That was probably one of my first books I've read as an adult, physical books.
I know.
Or actually, no, I listened to it. But
I was going to say, and to those listening that don't read, for one, oh my God, you're missing out on everything that life has to offer. And two, I don't read either. I listen, right? But listen with intention. Don't just listen passively. Because I hear people, oh, I read that. Like, did you?
But you were sleeping.
Yeah. And to me, I sometimes don't remember books. They have to hit at the right time.
And passively listening
Audible
is... Yeah.
Oh, my God. If there's one thing that has the best ROI, it's Audible. Like, if you're not reading books,
Personal
listening
development
to books, listening to podcasts, growing yourself, then you ain't gonna.
And
if you expect to make more money, or
if you feel lost, confused, angry, sad, and you don't know why, start reading books, personal development
know
books.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, you're a badass. You got.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, even if you do listen passively, it's better than watching Forensic Files and falling asleep and then having nightmares about killing people.
Sounds like
Speaking for a friend. Yeah, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And then this one's directed more towards women, but it's called Worthy. It's a newer book by Jamie Kern Lima. She is the founder of It Cosmetics, and she, I think she sold her company. She grew it to this extremely ginormous company, and she is just a very inspirational person that has gone through so many struggles, has been rejected so many times on her journey of being in the cosmetic industry, being not a 90-pound woman and then struggling with like rosacea and stuff. She's got denied so many times. Anyway, she has a book called Worthy for all the women listening.
Nice.
Those are my 3 recommendations.
I have 2. Maybe I have a plenty. I'm just looking.
It's good for guys too.
The 5 Major Pieces to the Life Puzzle. This is a 3-hour book by Jim Rohn, who is, shout out to Jim Rohn. I'm shouting everybody out today, but RIP to Jim Rohn.
I was going to say, yeah.
But he is my he's the most influential person in my life.
He was Tony Robbins' mentor and Aaron Stokes.
Really, yeah. It was just weird because I actually didn't know that when I found him, and I just found it interesting. I just agree with everything he says. And the 5 Major Pieces to the Life Puzzle is just it like sums everything up in 5 pieces in 3 hours, which is me, right? I don't want to, the other book I would recommend, which is a little deeper, which Nicole mentioned earlier.
Ooh, yes, I
Earth.
Forgot about that one.
And that's what I thought you were going to call out, by Eckhart Tolle.
Yes.
Wow, that one blew my mind.
Absolute favorite book.
Yeah, me too. And
it's
then,
deep, but it's so good. I would recommend reading it with a highlighter.
Yeah, that one is very deep. And then I'm rolling through here my books. About a lot of them are business. So the other one I would recommend would be probably Leadership and Self-Deception. That's a
good
great
one.
book because it talks a lot about your ego and your inner self. And I am going to be reading. I just actually bought a book called Predictably Irrational that I heard about, so I'm pretty excited about that, and I'll come back with that. But with that, we should probably end. It's been an hour.
I said everything I had to say.
I have a lot
Plus
to say,
some.
but here we are. Thanks everybody for listening or watching, and that's everything we know about imposter syndrome. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, share the podcast if you can. Share it. And we don't get a huge amount of views.
Was that a subliminal message?
Share. Oh, sorry, what? But appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Live long and prosper.
And thanks to Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken.
Peace.
Again.